Shri Harim Paramanandam, Shri Harim Paramanandam, Upadeshtaramishwaram, Upadeshtaramishwaram, Vyapakam Sarvalokanam, Vyapakam Sarvalokanam, Karanam Tam Namamyaham, Karanam Tam Namamyaham. I salute Sri Hari, who is of the nature of ultimate bliss, who is the primal teacher, the Lord of all, who pervades all the worlds as the very existence of those worlds. Today, in conclusion, I'd like to end with a magic trick. Verse number 135. Verse number 135. There is, at the very, almost towards the very end of the text, Shankaracharya reveals the essential methodology of Vedanta. What's exactly going on? What have we done all these days in this entire text? And he does it by making a pot disappear. So what is this making a pot disappear? We'll read the verse first, and then I'll explain with the help of the example, the pot and clay example. The verse is very interesting, 135. This is the essence of the method of Vedanta. Karye karanata yata, karye karanata yata, karane nahi karyata, karane nahi karyata, karanatvam tato gachet, karanatvam tato gachet, karyabhave vicharata, karyabhave vicharata. The cause is in the effect, but the effect is not in the cause. And through this reasoning, it is found that in the absence of the effect, the causality of the cause disappears. The translation is not quite good. I'll repeat that. It sounds mysterious. The cause is in the effect. The effect is not in the cause. And therefore, the causality of the cause disappears. The cause alone remains, but without being a cause. And this is revealed by this reasoning. What does it mean? First, the example, then we'll apply it to this universe and ourselves. The example is just imagine you're holding a pot, a clay pot. And now when you're holding a pot, a new idea is introduced to us. We are told this is an effect, it's a product, and it has a cause. By cause, I mean a material cause. I don't mean the potter, I mean the material out of which the pot is made, clay. Like the material cause of the ornament, golden ornament is gold. The material cause of the wave out there is water. In the same way, the material cause of the pot is clay. So we are told first, this what you are holding, it's a pot, but it's an effect. It has a cause. There's a material out of which this is made. And that material is clay. Step one. This happens in 4 steps. So step 1, that a cause is introduced. There's a material out of which it is made, it's clay. Second step, we are asked to find out where the clay is. And we investigate the pot. He said it's right there in the pot. It's right there in the pot. And when we investigate the pot, we find it is clay. What we are touching is clay. It's clay in the inside, it's clay on the top, it's clay in the bottom. In fact, what we call the pot is through and through clay and clay only. The weight of the pot is the clay itself. What we are touching is the clay itself. What we handle is the clay itself. So it is clay and clay only. At the second stage, we realize that the cause pervades the effect. The effect is nothing but the cause. The pot is nothing but the clay. Are you with me so far? Then the third, we realize there is no entity called the pot at all. There is no entity called the pot at all. Because What we call a pot is basically a name given to a particular shape of the clay. Right or wrong? It's a particular shape of the clay. It's shaped in this way, and we call it a pot. It is named a pot, and it is used. There is a name, a form, and a use. That is true. But the material itself, the substance itself, the reality itself is clay. So if there is no separate second entity called a pot other than the clay, if there is no pot other than the clay, if there is no effect other than the cause, then why call the clay a cause? A cause of what? What real entity other than clay is there? It's only clay. What is there? You're right, it's a name, it's a form, it's a use. Name, form, transaction. In Sanskrit, nama, rupa, vyavahara. These are there, but they are not real entities. What do I mean by real entities? If you take the clay away, where is the form? Does it hang in the air? No. Will there be a shadowy pot left after you take the clay away from it? No. When you take the water away from the wave, what is left? Nothing. When you take the gold away from the ornament, what is left? Nothing. When you take the clay away from the pot, nothing of the pot is left. The form is not left. And if there is no form, what does the name refer to? What does the name pot refer to? What real thing does the name pot refer to? Nothing. It becomes empty. So the name has no corresponding entity. The shape cannot exist without the material clay. And the use, you store water in it or milk in it or whatever, you can't use the pot without the clay. Once the clay is taken away, the use also disappears. The name, form, and use all disappear. The pot disappears without the clay. Without the clay, there is no pot. At the third stage, we realize there is no effect, and therefore, the causality of the clay is also lost. What I mean by that is, we were saying that the clay is the cause of the pot. Clay is the cause, and pot is the effect. But if there is no effect, why call the clay cause? What is it a cause of? Are you beginning to get what I'm leading towards? So clay only is left, and the fourth stage we see clay only is left, neither a cause nor an effect. Made the pot disappear, though it's right there. It's disappeared by reasoning. We realize that it is clay and clay throughout. So now if you look at the verse, it will make sense. Karye karanatayata. In the effect, see the cause. In the pot, see the clay. The clay is introduced as a cause of the pot. The pot is an effect, clay is the cause. Stage 1. Stage 2. Notice that the cause is right there in the effect. Clay is right there in the pot. Every bit of the pot is clay. In fact, the effect is pervaded through and through. The pot is through and through clay and nothing else. In fact, there is no real entity called the pot. It is clay and clay alone. That is, at the second stage we realize. Third stage, if the pot has no real entity, has no real existence, there is no real effect. In that case, why call clay cause? If effect is not real, then it's not that the clay is not real. Clay is real. But the causality of clay is not real. Clay remains, then the fourth stage, clay remains as neither cause nor effect, as the only reality. So, what does it mean to us, all this talk about clay and pots? Apply it to the world. Here is the universe in front of the world, in front of us. And here we are. We sentient beings, individual beings, experiencing a world. So this is like the pot. This is what we have got. Actually, the point is to realize the non-dual Brahman. If you straight away say there's only one non-dual existence, pure existence, consciousness, bliss, we'll go, what? What are you talking about? There's nothing of the sort. Here is the universe, here I am, that's the only reality. Body, mind, and the universe, that's it. So in order to lead us to the vision, to the experience, to realization of the one non-dual reality, what they do is, yes, here is the universe. You're right. Here is the pot. You're right. Now let me introduce existence consciousness, isness awareness. There is a cause, there is a reality behind this universe. The experience of your experience of life. The way we experience life, there is a reality behind this. The underlying reality is consciousness. Or to be more complete, is this isness awareness. I'll just say simply this much. Sat Chit, isness awareness. Where do you find it? Stage 2. Look into your experience. Whenever we experience anything, all our experiences are pervaded through and through by this being consciousness, isness awareness. Plus names and forms. See, bodies and minds are that isness and that awareness. In that, names and forms are superimposed. It's a body, it's a mind, it's a thought, it's a feeling. But behind it continuously is one isness awareness, one consciousness. By this consciousness, I mean the Atman, the real, the pure consciousness, not the empirical consciousness. So this one isness awareness is found in everything in this world, in every experience of life. Let me put it even more simply. When we look at the things of the world, whatever we experience in the world, notice we experience them as existing. Table is, man is, woman is, hall is, tree is, ocean is, ocean liner is. The isness, the existence. We never think of it that way. We never think of existence as the reality in itself. We think things exist, things have existence. An example will make this clear. The waves in the ocean, they're all water. Now, does it make more sense to say the waves have water in them? Case 1. Case 2, it is the water which appears as the waves. It's not that the waves have water, it's water which appears as the waves. This is more correct. In the same way, we think things have existence. But Vedanta says existence appears as things. Existence is the reality, and it appears as things with the help of name and form. And name and form belong to Maya, name, form, and use. The form of the pot, the name of the pot, and the use of the pot, where you put water in it or whatever. So name, form, and use are superimposed. They do not have independent existence. What really exists is being itself, or Sat. In Western thought, the one who introduced this most recently, there's only one philosopher who really talks about being itself, and that is Heidegger, Martin Heidegger. He is a bit in disrepute because he became involved with the Nazis and things like that, but he's a brilliant philosopher. And he asked this question, what is existence? I'll also refer to you a new book which was recently published, Jim Holt's Why Does the World Exist? He asked this question, why does anything exist at all? He says, this is the ultimate question. Why does anything exist at all? And he takes this question to philosophers, physicists, mathematicians, theologians, and asks them this question and collects all the answers. It's a very thrilling book. It's like at the cutting edge of thought. This idea, of course, Marcus will take forward in the sessions you are going to enjoy. So why does anything exist at all? This ultimate question. The Vedantic answer is, notice, things exist because of existence itself. Existence is the reality. Sat is the reality. So in everything there is existence, whatever you see. And when we look inside, not only do we exist, our own thoughts, feelings, ideas, not only do they exist, but they shine in awareness, consciousness. So this consciousness aspect is most manifest within, and the existence aspect is most manifest outside, but they are the same thing. Sat Chit. So in the third stage, we realize it is only existence and existence consciousness, Sat Chit, all throughout, inside and outside. It is this one Brahman. Names and forms are just superimposed. So if the only reality is Brahman, and the things of the world are just appearances of Brahman, then if there is only one reality, Brahman, there is no such second reality called the universe apart from Brahman, just as there is no pot apart from clay. Then why call Brahman a cause of the universe? Why call that Sat a cause of the universe? It is the only reality. The causality of the cause disappears. Brahman or Sat alone remains. That's the fourth stage. Let me quickly run through it. Pot. Here is the universe. Introduce clay as the cause of the pot and look for it in the pot itself. You find throughout the pot there is clay and clay only. There is no such thing called a pot. Introduce existence as the reality of the universe and look into the universe. Everything is basically existence plus a name and form. The only reality anywhere here is being itself. I mean, logically you can see it. If you take existence away from, if you take say the green color away from this cloth, it will be a cloth without green color. If you take any property you deduct from anything, it will still exist without that property. But if you deduct existence from it, isness from it, what will happen? If you take is away, wave is. If you take the is away, what happens? Wave is not. It disappears. So existence is the reality, and the rest of whatever we see in the universe is just superimposed name and form on it. Third, we see if existence is the only reality, there is no second thing apart from existence, then why call existence a cause of anything? It didn't produce anything. It alone exists. In the same way, clay alone is really existing. It didn't produce a thing called a pot. That clay is being called a pot. And so finally we reach the fourth stage, where the clay is the only reality, not a cause, not an effect. Here we reach the stage, existence awareness is the only reality, not an effect, not a cause. The non-dual reality is established. So this process is at the heart of Vedanta and is called superimposition and desuperinposition. The Sanskrit term is adhyaropa apavada. Adhyaropa apavada. Why is this process used? The reason is, directly you cannot demonstrate that pure being or pure awareness. You must first accept the world as we experience it. You must first accept the pot and then introduce that reality as its cause. Having introduced it as a cause, when you investigate, you find there is nothing real except that. And therefore, that alone exists without a second, and non-duality is established. So this is the heart, the DNA of what was going on in this text. Do you remember we started with first that there is a pure consciousness within us? Do you remember the 5 pointers we said? Not body, not mind, witness consciousness. There you are introducing the idea of clay into the pot. That there is some reality here which is not body, mind, consciousness itself. Once that is established, do you remember Shankaracharya switched? He said, this is not the point. We have not established non-duality. Now see that the universe, body, mind, if you compare it to existence consciousness, they are not independent realities. They are appearances. He gives a series of examples to show that. And then finally, only existence consciousness, non-duality, you remain with that. Let's go on to verse number 136. Here he talks about the pot and clay example. 136. Atha shuddham bhavet vastu, atha shuddham bhavet vastu, yadvai vacham agocharam, yadvai vacham agocharam, drashtavya mridghate naiva, drashtavya mridghate naiva, drishtantena punah punah, drishtantena punah punah, atha shuddham bhavet vastu. So after this entire exercise, pot, clay, you end up with clay alone. Universe and existence itself, you end up with pure being or non-dual existence, sat chit, existence consciousness. Atha shuddham bhavet vastu. So the pure being alone remains. Pure being alone remains. Yadvai vacham agocharam, which is beyond speech. Why didn't, if this is what you wanted to point out, why didn't you say it straight away? You can't say it straight away. It has to be demonstrated. It has to be shown. You first take the student where the student is. You think you are a body, you think there's a material universe outside you, let's start there. And then end up with being consciousness, isness awareness, sat chit. And then he says, drashtavya mridghateneva drishtantena. That means, see this again and again. Consider the example of clay and pot. Mridghata, clay pot. So he's introduced. Why clay pot, you might ask? Well, I guess there were lots of clay pots around at that time. In fact, whenever you excavate the ancient ruins of any civilization, what's the first thing that you come across? Pottery. Pottery. So clay pot, that was a classic example. So use the example of the clay pot. Mridghata means clay pot. Use the example of the clay pot and ponder about it. It's not about pots. It's not about clay. It's about ourselves and the universe and the underlying reality of this. The reality of this universe is you. Not this person you, but you as existence consciousness. So this is the method of superimposition, desuperimposition. This is used to point out a reality which is beyond language. Vacham agocharam. It cannot be expressed directly. The pot you can talk about, the clay you can talk about, the universe you can talk about, this individual being you can talk about. The non-dual reality can only be pointed at. You remember the 10th man example? You can only take the person up to the last sheath, the sheath of bliss, Anandamaya, and then hope that the student intuitively grasps what is being meant there. This method one has to consider. I mean, it's very interesting. There are many examples used to show this method. What is being done in Vedanta? One example is a student goes to the teacher and asks, please teach me what is sky, what is space. And the teacher says, space, right there, here, in front of you. Here, you mean this hall? No, beyond this hall. Oh, beyond the hall, you mean the garden? No, not the garden. Beyond the garden. Oh, beyond the garden, you mean the ocean. The teacher says, I realize the problem now. All right, stay here with me. And the student stays there, and the teacher gives the student all sorts of duties. The main duty is plant some sunflower seeds in the garden and take care of the plants. So the plants sprout and they grow pretty tall, and they're sunflowers. Months pass, and the student is hard at work tending this huge garden of sunflower plants, which are now covering the entire front of the ashram. And one day in the morning, when he's about to water the plants, the teacher says, no, wait. He gives him a sickle and says, go and cut all the plants. Hurry up, quick. Cut all the plants. And the student gets to work. Works hard, cleans the entire place, cuts all the plants, and they're all gone. There's nothing left. And the teacher says, student, look, space. The student says, oh, I see. This is what you mean by space. So what did the teacher do? He filled up the entire space with the plants, and then suddenly removed the plants, and then you appreciate what was already there. So similarly, by this process, we appreciate what is already there. In enlightenment, we realize we always wear this being awareness. It's right here. We don't see it. Another very interesting example is given of this technique. A mathematical example. There was a rich man who died, and he left his property, which was elephants, to his children. Let's say, what kind of property is that? It's true, actually, in ancient India, elephants, if you're really rich, you owned elephants. Why? It's like showing off. Because elephants are no good, and they are very expensive to maintain. So if you can afford to keep elephants. In fact, it became a phrase in English later on, a white elephant. In government circles, a white elephant is a big project which just sucks up all the money and does not give any returns. So it's a white elephant. So if you owned elephants, you're really rich. I remember, even now people own elephants in India, some places. It eats a lot, doesn't do anything. At the most, you can go out for a ride on your elephant and feel good about yourself, but that's all. Um, I remember when we were, I was a novice, new monk, uh, the head of another neighboring ashram, they're called Mandaleshwars, the head of a big organization, a traditional monastery. He came to visit our monastery to meet our head, the abbot, the Swami who's in charge of our ashram. The first thing, in order to establish dominance, he said, "How many elephants do you own?" And our Swami looked, he said, "I don't want to have any elephants. I have a few cows, but no elephants." And the visiting Swami said, "I have 5 elephants, so which means I'm superior to you. Now listen to me." So this man died and he left. He was a rich man. He left. He had 3 sons, and he left them all his elephants, 17 of them. And in the will, he said they have to be divided. The eldest son gets half of the elephants, and the next son gets 1/6 of the elephants, and the third son gets 1/9 of the elephants. And of course, you can't cut up the elephants. How do you get half of 17 elephants? How do you get 1/6 of 17 elephants or 1/9 of 17 elephants? The sons were puzzled. What do we do? And then their father's friend, who's also rich, he comes along riding on his elephant and he says, "What's the problem?" "This is the problem, sir. Our father's left us this property and this is how it's to be divided." And this man who has come visiting, he said, "My friends, don't worry. I will lend you my elephant." He's still sitting on the elephant. He says, "I'll lend you this elephant. I add it to your property. Now you can divide it. Now you have 18 elephants." And the eldest son gets half of 18, which is 9 elephants. And the second son gets 1/6 of 18, which is 3 elephants. And the third son gets 1/9 of 18, which is 2 elephants. And so they add it up. 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 2 is 17, and the 17 elephants have been divided. This man says, "I'll take my elephant back now, thank you very much." He's still sitting on that. He knows that he doesn't have to be done, nothing has to be done. So he introduced that, problem solved, and taken back again. Similarly, this entire process is introduced, don't take it seriously. The whole point is to make you realize the background reality. There's an important point. In one of the Upanishads, the 2 Upanishads, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is said the whole universe is created from Brahman, and Brahman appears as 5 elements: sky and fire, air and fire and water and earth, the ancient cosmology which was prevalent across many cultures. And another Upanishad, the Chandogya, says there are only 3 elephants. Elephants. There are only 3 elements. 3 elements: fire and water and earth. Fire, water, and earth. They have left out sky and air. Just fire, water, and earth. And the universe is created out of these 3 elements. Now a question arises, which is right? Give me one. There has to be one right thing. Are there 5 elements or are there 3 elements? And there are discussions. But Shankaracharya, in his commentary, he makes a point. He says we are not trying to describe the universe. The point is not here trying to describe the universe. It's very important from our point of view. They were not doing science as we understand it today. They're not trying to explain the universe as we understand it today, the way of modern science. What Shankaracharya says is, we are setting out a technique, a process to lead you back to the ultimate reality, your own reality, so that you get liberation, moksha. It's a technique which has been introduced. Take it as 5 elements, take it as 3 elements, it's up to you, but follow the path down to the conclusion. So it's very important. It's not competing against modern science. It's basically a technology or a technique to point back to the reality within. So this is the essence of the method. Now, moving on. 139, verse number 139. The same thing is said in a very beautiful way. Karye hi karanam pashyet, karye hi karanam pashyet, paschat karyam visarjayet, paschat karyam visarjayet, karanatvam tato gachet, karanatvam tato gachet avashishtam bhavet munihi. Avashishtam bhavet munihi. Same thing. Now summing up. One should see the cause in the effect, then let go of the effect. The causality of the cause is lost thereby. And what remains? What remains? You would say, oh, Brahman remains, as I was saying, the pure being remains, existence remains, consciousness remains. No, he says, you remain. What a beautiful way of directly pointing out. Avashishtam means remains, the remainder. Bhavet muni. Muni means the sage, the inquirer, you the sage, you remain as the remainder. Once you have dismissed the effect, the causality of the cause is lost, but not that the cause disappears. It's not a cause anymore. It remains as you. You remain as pure consciousness. But remember, it's not that the universe will disappear. It's still there. But you realize all of it is I alone, I meaning existence consciousness. Inside existence consciousness, Brahman inside, Brahman outside, it is Brahman through and through. And yet, at this level of existence, you can continue to do whatever you're doing. The monk remains a monk, a householder can remain a householder, the scientist or the artist can pursue their goals in this world of appearance. It's a worthwhile project. And one can go on, but live in freedom and in happiness and in joy, because you know that you are the very reality of this universe. So this is the whole point of the teaching. I'm reminded of the biblical I am that I am, the ultimate reality. The only way God speaks of himself is as I am. I am that I am. No qualifications. And that is our innermost reality. That's our identity. That's the meaning of Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Now, there is one topic that I did not touch upon. I think we have fairly covered everything. Just one thing that was technical, so I did not touch upon it. But let me just mention it for the sake of completion. I've skipped over it. They introduced just before the meditation, the text on meditation. The topic is the topic of karma. You see, the mechanism which not only Advaita, but all of Indian philosophies, all of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all of them use is the law of karma, or the doctrine of karma. Basically, what is the idea? The idea is cause as an effect. Causes of effects. There is causality. And so what we have done in the past, that gives rise to effects now and in the future. Good action, dharma, causes merit, punya. And that merit is experienced in our lives as pleasant things, sukha. Good things happen to you if you have good karma. I don't have to explain this to people in the modern West, because karma and all of this is part of the language now. And if one is deliberately naughty, adharma, consciously done evil action, that generates papa or demerit. And the demerit is experienced as dukkha, suffering. So the equation is simple. Dharma, punya, sukha. Good action, merit, pleasant result, good, happiness. Evil action, demerit, unpleasant result, misery. Adharma, papa, dukkha. And this cycle goes on. As we realize that our sufferings and our happiness is caused by our own actions, we begin to be more careful about our lives. We become more ethical and careful to not hurt others, to do the best we can, and so we evolve morally. Now, the sum total of these actions, the results they come life after life. So the idea is we are born with this body, to these parents, and these are the major events in our life which happen to us. Birth, marriage, illness, health, wealth, success, failure. Major events are determined by our past karma. There is a role of free will, but there's a lot of play of past karma also. It determines the boundaries of the parameters of our life. And this goes on. Cycles, life after life, life and birth. Birth and death, it goes on. Now, when does this end? This will go on until we evolve spiritually and realize our true nature. When we realize that we are not these sentient, these little beings, but we are one with Brahman, that our real nature is the absolute. When we realize that, the entire game comes to an end. Entire game comes to an end. There is no more karma. All past karma is burnt up. They say literally, kshiyante chasya karmani, tasmin drishte paravari. The Mundaka Upanishad says, realizing the Supreme Brahman, the individual jiva, all the past karma is burnt up. Since past karma is burnt up, there will be no future births. So there is an escape from this cycle of birth and death. So this is the classic model. And there's one question which is raised. If all karma is burnt up, how does the enlightened person keep living? Remember, the presumption behind it is all the events in our life are happening because past karmas are giving results. A portion of that past karma is called prarabdha karma. Prarabdha literally means well begun. So that which has started giving results in this life, that portion of my total karma which has started giving results in this life is called prarabdha karma, the well begun karma, the started karma. As long as that portion lasts, I will live. This body will live. When that particular part of my karma is exhausted, this body dies. Then what happens? The stored up karma. There are other categories, sanchita karma, agami karma. Those will start giving results. They become prarabdha, and a new body comes. Now the question is this: if all karma is destroyed by enlightenment, and you are free of birth and death, then in this life, how does the enlightened person go on living? Because we do see that the masters, the spiritual masters, whom we presume they were enlightened, and they are going on living after their enlightenment. You see, by this logic, they should die immediately after enlightenment, because all the karma is burnt up, the prarabdha karma is gone, and so how can the body continue? Literally, the karma is the fuel for this body. So enlightenment should lead to instant death. Enlightenment would be tantamount to suicide, and not very attractive at all. You're going to die if you're enlightened. And not only that, it would also mean all the masters who are living and teaching, they are not fully enlightened. Question, you're still living, master. How come? So no, clearly enlightened beings continue to live. How is that possible if you have this kind of understanding of karma? So a kind of compromise was worked out. What was said was, the past karma is all destroyed, the stored up karma is destroyed, no new karma is generated for that being, for that individual being, because that individual being has lost its individuality. It's one with the universal, it is Brahman. But the karma which has started giving results, the prarabdha karma, that will continue until it's exhausted. So to that period, this body will live, the enlightened master will live, and as a blessing to society, will live as a Jivan Mukta, enlightened while living. So the possibility of Jivan Mukta, that is the topic. How is Jivan Mukta possible? This is the classic answer. Prarabdha karma continues. And the examples are well known. Potter's wheel, again the clay pot. So the potter's wheel, after the potter has done his business and gone, the wheel takes a couple of more turns, by the inertia and stops. There's a fan. If you switch it off, it still whirls around a couple of times before stopping. Another example given is the archer who's shooting arrows. So the archer has shot an arrow, 2 arrows in his hand, and has a quiver full of arrows, and suddenly decides, I will not shoot any more arrows. So he drops the arrows in his hand, he drops the quiver full of arrows, and doesn't shoot any more arrows, but the arrow which is in flight, that he cannot do anything about. That will go and end at the target. Similarly, the karma which is released in actuality will continue to give results, and the enlightened person continues as a living enlightened being, which is great for us. So we get the teachings from enlightened masters. This is the compromise which is worked out. This is the party line, the traditional answer given to this question. If you never had this question, you wouldn't be interested in the answer. But if you are imbued, if you are immersed in the idea of karma as you are in India, this question will immediately come. So this is the answer. Shankaracharya says in this book, it's nonsense. He says this answer doesn't work and it's not necessary. Why? He says, the moment you realize I am Brahman, there's only one existence, non-dual existence, consciousness, bliss. There's the only reality. The world is an appearance. I am that reality. At that moment, all karma is gone. Not only that, he points out something interesting. What do you think about enlightenment? The way it is taught to us is that you are under karma. When you realize you are Brahman, you are free of karma. So you would sort of expect that, I was under karma till now. Now I'm free of karma, it's gone. Shankaracharya says in this text, no, that's not enlightenment. When you realize that you are Brahman, the realization will be, I always was Brahman. I was never under karma. There is no such thing as karma. It was all like a dream. None of it was real. Always I have been Brahman, I am Brahman, and I will be Brahman. In fact, I have to use the language of time. Was, is, will be. But actually even time is an appearance. Space, time and causality, that is Maya. Yeah. Space, time and causality is Maya. So even karma and the law of karma is part of Maya. It's not real. It's not real. That's what you realize. You don't have to explain. So does he dismiss the entire thing? He says, no. People in the world will ask, how is the enlightened person going on with the body? The enlightened person does not think that he is this body. The enlightened person does not think I am an enlightened person. There was Nisargadatta who was asked this question. He was a modern enlightened teacher. You know the book, I Am That? Those are translations from his teachings. Somebody once said to him, you are a Brahmagyani, a knower of Brahman, was praising him. Master, you are a knower of Brahman. And he was a rough man. I never, it was well before my time, but I met a gentleman in California who had actually visited him. And I said, what was your first impression? He said, first impression was he was a very rough man. He would scold. So, you are a knower of Brahman, Master. And he says, what? You are insulting me. You're insulting me. How is this an insult? You're an enlightened being. This is the highest praise one can give. You are a knower of Brahman. He said, no, I am not a knower of Brahman. I am Brahman. Knower of Brahman still means I am an individual who knows Brahman. No. That's not how an enlightened master sees the truth. I am Brahman, you are Brahman too, and everybody else is. It's just that you don't see it. Only difference is I see it. If you want to call me an enlightened being, you can. But the enlightened being does not think of himself or herself in that way. I am Brahman. So, Shankaracharya says this whole idea of karma and becoming free from karma, it's all good. It's all part of that explanatory mechanism. Superimposition, desuperimposition. I've introduced an elephant to help you solve the problem. Then I'll withdraw the elephant also. Don't take this law of karma seriously too. Don't take causality seriously. Don't take time and space seriously. There is only one reality behind all this. But until that time, space, causality, all of them hold sway, and you would do well to abide by those until you get until you realize what we truly are. And even after realization, notice that the enlightened beings live among us and they uphold all the rules and ethics and laws of society and religion to the best of their ability. They become standards of perfection for the rest of us. They naturally do what we try to practice. All right. So that's just one little point he makes, which I had not mentioned earlier. Quickly, in the 5 minutes or so remaining to me, I will just give a summary. What did we do all this while? A quick look at the text. This is an introductory text to non-dual Vedanta, Aparoksha Anubhuti. The word Aparoksha Anubhuti, Anubhuti means experience, Aparoksha means direct. If you want a precise translation, it's very interesting. Aparoksha means not indirect. Paroksha, indirect. Aparoksha, not indirect. It doesn't say direct experience, it says not indirect experience. What does it mean? Experience or our knowledge, what we know, is of two kinds. One is perceptual, what is directly revealed to our senses, what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. And the other kind of thing which we know is beyond our senses, paroksha. Pratyaksha is what is revealed to our senses. Paroksha is that which is beyond our senses, yet we know. How do we know? We know through science. We know through maybe religion. It's interesting that you classify science and religion under the same category, paroksha. Based on the data that we have, we make hypotheses, test it, and get scientific knowledge. Common sense knowledge, our day-to-day practical working knowledge. Also, if you believe in religion and the holy books, you say, okay, I know that there is a heaven and God because the books tell me so. All of that is called indirect knowledge. Not perceptual knowledge, indirect knowledge, paroksha. What is being talked about here is neither perceptual knowledge nor indirect knowledge. It's neither pratyaksha nor paroksha. Rather, it is that one direct consciousness to which both kinds of knowledge come and go. That one consciousness which makes everything possible, all this knowledge possible. Then he says, fourfold qualifications. Quickly, if you remember, these are necessary for, with these, this teaching becomes enlightenment. Without these, it's a nice philosophy we have learned. What are these fourfold qualifications? Viveka, difference between eternal and non-eternal, an awareness that there is such a thing. Vairagya, dispassion for the non-eternal, for limited worldly concerns. Then the sixfold discipline, shama, control of mind, dhamma, control of the external external organs, uparati, a withdrawal from too much engagement with variety of worldly pursuits, samadhana, focus on Vedanta, then titiksha, spiritual toughness, come what may, I shall pursue this until enlightenment, and shraddha, a working faith, that there is something to this, let me see, let me pursue it and find out for myself. That much faith is necessary. And then finally, the fourth qualification, mumukshutvam, that means an intense desire to be free of the limitations of the human condition. So these are the fourfold qualification. Then he goes into an inquiry into the self. Realization of Brahman sets you free from everything. How do you realize Brahman? Start with yourself. Who am I or what am I? That's the first stage. Well, then you remember the pointers? Gave a lot of pointers. Seer and the seen, they're different. I am the seer, not the seen. Consciousness and not conscious. Changing and unchanging. Many and one, complex and simple. And the inner and the outer. These were the pointers which we used to distinguish I as the witness consciousness apart from body and mind. I'm not the body, not even the mind. I am the consciousness which shines through the mind, through the body, and experiences the world. That witness consciousness. Then he goes further. He says it is not true that there is a witness consciousness and there is a mind, there is a body, and there is a universe. No, not like that. There is a witness, there is that consciousness in which mind, body, and universe appear. And he gives a series of examples. I counted 15 examples. Snake and rope, gold and ornament, water and wave. On purpose, he makes the examples fuzzy. You might say snake and rope and clay and pot are not the same kind of example, right? But he says both of them you have to apply, and you have to realize, because it's not exactly like either of them. You have to realize what is meant by those examples. So a series of examples to show that all that we objectively experience, they are all appearances in consciousness. That one indubitable consciousness. Notice, whatever we experience in this world can be doubted, in principle. Yesterday I was talking with Marcus again, we had a very interesting discussion. The criterion of a scientific truth is falsifiability. If it is falsifiable, it can be taken as a scientific truth and you can test it to see whether it's true or false. This is the criterion of truth in science. It's interesting to see that in Vedanta, that what is truth, there's a definition. And it's the exact opposite. Unfalsifiability. In Sanskrit, abadhita. That which cannot be sublated, that is impossible to deny. What is impossible to deny? That I am conscious. Everything else can be doubted and denied. This consciousness itself, which is the background of all experience, that cannot be denied. That's one interesting thing. Another thing that came up in the conversation was science is all about measurement. So if it's something real, it should be available for observation and measurement. And in Vedanta, measurement is the characteristic of Maya. That which is measurable is Maya. And the reality is immeasurable. It's not something, an object which can be limited and measured. It's interesting. And it's actually, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. When you're talking about Brahman or the pure being, you're not talking about one scientific fact among many scientific facts. You're not talking about a thing among many things. There are tables and chairs and dolphins and whales and quasars and quarks. And there is one more thing called Brahman. No, not like that. There isn't a necklace, a bracelet, and a tiara, and something else called gold. No, not like that. It is the reality of those ornaments. We are talking about a different order of reality altogether. So, in the next stage, he gives these examples, the wonderful examples to point out what he means. And then he says, and then the discussion about karma comes in between. And then finally he says, in order to become established in this identity, he gives a series of 15 exercises. And very interestingly, we saw he takes yogic terms from Patanjali Yoga, terms from Hatha Yoga, and changes the meaning completely. And there's a verse which I did not do. At the end, he says, all those yogic practices are beneficial. One must do them, prepare oneself, and then move on to the non-dual insight provided by these methods. And then he concludes finally with the pot and clay example, making the pot disappear with a magic trick. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat.